Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Troy Allen Golight, and welcome to Trigger Time TV. How important is your physical fitness when it comes to self-defense? Mike Green and Chris Alvarez are going to talk about that.
Hi, I'm Mike Green from Green Ops.
And I'm Chris Alvarez from Green Ops.
We're here today at Turkey Fork Tactical
In Lucedale, Mississippi.
And today we're going to talk about functional fitness and firearms training. So a couple things that we did back in my Special Forces days is we would typically go to the range and we would incorporate some type of drill where it required us to run, maybe do some push-ups in full kit, and then do some firearms training. One of the things that we had found was that folks don't rise to the level of their expectations in combat. They typically rise to the level of their ability that they've developed during training. And those are things that people think about just in maybe in a world of combat, but in reality it also is practical for the everyday carrier, the civilian carrier back home in the streets. What's your take on that, Chris?
I 100% agree. I'm a huge fan of high intensity interval training. Incorporate that into my range training as well. And I've noticed that I like to test myself out during stressful situations, see how I can handle the gun proficiently and acquire targets, test my accuracy out. So I incorporate that into my regular training.
And you competed in tactical games plenty of times.
Yeah, 5 times. I'm a 5-time tactical games competitor. And I've noticed that I placed really well at the elite division and noticed that including that in my training helps me tremendously to be very competitive at that level. And I think it translates also into the real world. I feel like I'm better prepared to handle myself in a situation that allows me to use my firearms in a dynamic situation.
And that's interesting you bring that up, because I remember I was judging one of the games, and I saw folks coming up to the line. They were running, they were getting there, and they were smoked. They were bringing the gun up and they were shooting, and their target wasn't so good. But I remember you got there, you got in there fast, and even though you got there fast, you had a tight shot group when you left as opposed to some of the other folks. And what do you attribute that ability to get there fast, but then also have that ability to bring it in and still get that good shot?
And it's incorporating the physical fitness with the firearms training. If you don't combine both of them and test yourself out on the range, then you're not going to rise to that level of expectation like you mentioned before.
Okay, yeah. And you know, I recall one time I was in Iraq on Rod Irish, and we got hit, and I'm getting out of the vehicle and I'm running, I'm moving to cover, and we had some folks that were new with us, and it took them a little bit longer. And fortunately, you know, that could have been a bad situation because they weren't in as shape as they should have been. But the other thing I've noticed is that gunfights in the real world back in the States, not just overseas, tend to be dynamic. And I think that there's plenty of evidence out there with John Correa from Active Self-Protection that his after-action videos show many gunfights, thousands of them, and all those seem to be very dynamic. What do you have any?
Absolutely. I had a similar encounter in Iraq where I had to chase a bad guy, and I had to jump over walls, run, sprint, acquire targets. So I was very, after it, I was very impressed with myself because I have actually conditioned myself to that level of training.
Awesome. Yeah, so, you know, I'm a CrossFit Level 2 instructor, and I like to incorporate some of the things of, you know, basically using dumbbells and thrusters on the range now, and, you know, I think that helps get that heart rate up, and that we see that it's not as easy to acquire that sight and pull that trigger and still get that group. What kind of things are you using on the range?
I use ammo cans, sandbags, push-ups, pull-ups, rope climbs, sleds. So I incorporate all those things that taxes my forearms and my breathing. So I use those to test myself out.
Awesome. And those are things that you can do as a tactical games athlete and also an everyday carrier to be able to increase your ability of survivability, not just on the range, but also in the real world.
Trigger Time TV is brought to you by Horus Vision, Bravo Company USA, Hornady, Cheaper Than Dirt, Car Arms, Magnum Research, Thompson Auto Ordnance, Desert Tech, Elite Iron, the Neomag, Really Right Stuff, True North Concepts, and Eltor.